Scene 1 of this imagined movie unfolds as an intimate portrait of two young women, Karlee and Charlotte, reconnecting in the shadow of family upheaval. And though on the surface it reads like a simple domestic moment, underneath it resonates with deeper themes of longing, nostalgia, and the complexity of emerging identity within LGBTQ culture. The dialogue snippet captures a sense of shared history and comfort between the two characters. Karlee visiting Charlotte for the first time since her parents split signals that this is a reunion after a period of distance. And that distance, physical and emotional, has heightened their yearning for the closeness they once had. Their time together, framed by watching a scary movie and joking about its cliches, shows how the two are at ease enough to tease and banter but also harbor deeper emotions beneath the surface. The exchange about "what are you thinking about?" and "my dad," you points to a profound truth about relationships in transitional moments. When one part of life feels uncertain, we often cling to what feels familiar and safe, and for Charlotte, that is Karlee. Saying "I just miss how things used to be," like when we were together, makes explicit what's otherwise implicit. This is not just friendship, but something layered with a romantic past, or at least a deep intimacy that feels disrupted by outside forces like family breakups. When Charlotte blames her mom for ruining up a good thing, the film signals how queer relationships often feel precarious under parental or societal scrutiny, especially during adolescence or early adulthood when independence is limited. The simple "hey and yeah," followed by "lay down here and why," echoes a classic romantic or emotionally intimate trope where one person invites the other into physical closeness as a precursor to vulnerability. The power of this small invitation is huge in LGBTQ culture because it encapsulates how intimacy can be built not just through grand gestures but through everyday comfort and shared space, especially in environments where overt displays of affection might feel unsafe or forbidden. When Charlotte says "I just always wanted to do that," and Karlee responds with "well, I dare you to do it again," we see a kind of playful tension that many lesbians and queer women can relate to, testing boundaries through humor, dares, and games as a way to navigate desire without having to directly name it. The line "I know, I love you" lands as the emotional apex of the scene, a declaration that carries all the weight of their shared history and suppressed feelings. This is where the film's resonance with LGBTQ culture deepens. So many queer women have lived out similar scenarios where a moment of casual closeness turns into an emotionally seismic event because of the unspoken love or longing underneath. From a lesbian perspective, this scene reflects a very common but rarely dramatized dynamic: the merging of friendship and romance in a context where the lines between the two are blurred by secrecy, social pressure, or fear of rejection. Many women who later identify as lesbian or queer recall the best friend they were inseparable from in their youth, the one they watched movies with, stayed up late talking to, and maybe even shared a bed with, all under the socially sanctioned cover of female friendship. For lesbians, this kind of scene evokes the bittersweet memories of having to experience first love or first desire in coded, tentative ways, always aware of the risk of losing a friendship or facing family disapproval if the truth came out. The dare motif in the dialogue is also significant. Historically, queer desire has often been expressed indirectly, whether through jokes, dares, or games of truth or dare, because these provide plausible deniability, a way to test whether the other person might feel the same without exposing oneself fully. So when Karlee and Charlotte engage in a dare around closeness and then punctuate it with "I love you," it resonates as an authentic portrayal of how young women might navigate these charged emotions under heteronormative pressure. Women in general, regardless of orientation, can relate to the themes of nostalgia, closeness, and feeling pulled between family chaos and personal relationships. Many have experienced the bittersweet longing for a past intimacy with someone they trusted, or the desire to recapture a simpler time before adult complications set in. They can also relate to the emotional labor of comforting someone through family difficulties, the way a breakup or divorce ripples outward beyond the couple and affects children, siblings, and friends. In this sense, Charlotte's admission about missing how things used to be speaks to a universal human longing, and her reaching out to Karlee in that vulnerable moment mirrors how people reach for comfort during times of upheaval. The question of why society hates or resists seeing two girls in love connects directly to the subtext of this scene. Even though nothing overtly sexual happens here, the dialogue and body language hint at a romantic connection, which in many mainstream contexts has historically been treated as taboo. Part of the discomfort stems from patriarchal norms that define women's sexuality in relation to men. When two women express love for each other, it challenges the presumed universality of heterosexuality and undermines male-centered narratives of female desirability. There's also a long history of either erasing lesbian relationships or hypersexualizing them for the male gaze, leaving little space for authentic depictions of tender, ordinary intimacy between women. A scene like this, with its quiet vulnerability, its mix of playful dares and heartfelt confessions, runs counter to that tradition by presenting two young women's connection as self-contained, meaningful, and not defined by male presence. This is precisely why such scenes can feel subversive or uncomfortable to audiences conditioned to heterosexual romance as the default. Analyzing the construction of the scene further, the use of the horror movie as a backdrop is telling. Horror films often rely on tropes about women being dumb victims, and the character's commentary "don't go in there, she's so dumb" plays on this awareness. In contrast, their real-life scenario flips that script. These two young women are not victims but agents in their own emotional narrative, teasing and daring each other into deeper honesty. The juxtaposition of the silly horror film and their serious conversation about family and their relationship mirrors the dual lives many queer people live. On the surface engaging in normal teen or young adult activities, underneath grappling with identity, love, and the fear of rejection. Furthermore, the scene's pacing, the shift from banter to confession to declaration of love, mirrors the emotional rollercoaster of many coming-of-age queer stories. It captures the way moments of levity can suddenly turn serious, how joking can become a conduit for sincerity, and how vulnerability can emerge in the most mundane settings. This is especially resonant for LGBTQ audiences who often have to find or create private, safe spaces for their emotions to surface. Culturally, scenes like this serve an important function. They model for audiences what authentic queer intimacy can look like: gentle, hesitant, rooted in shared history and mutual care rather than spectacle. By doing so, they chip away at the stigmas that still persist. They show that two women's love can be as soft, as awkward, and as real as any heterosexual teen romance depicted on screen. They also highlight the role of friendship as a gateway to self-discovery, which is a recurring theme in lesbian and queer women's narratives. Another layer of analysis concerns the character's family context. Charlotte's parents' split acts as a catalyst for this reunion, but it also symbolizes the societal instability surrounding their relationship. Just as Charlotte's home life has been fractured, so too has her connection with Karlee been disrupted by external pressures. This parallels how many queer relationships historically have been undermined or complicated by social and familial expectations, from being forced to hide relationships to being separated by unsupportive parents or hostile environments. When Charlotte blames her mom for ruining up a good thing, she's not just talking about the divorce but also about the ripple effect it had on her own identity and freedom to love whom she chooses. Finally, the line "I love you" at the end lands with such force because it's not just an isolated declaration, but the culmination of everything unsaid between them. For LGBTQ viewers, hearing those words in this context can be cathartic because it reflects the validation and recognition that queer people often crave in media. It's a simple, universal phrase, but one that carries extra weight when spoken between two women in a culture that has long marginalized their love. For women in general, it underscores the power of saying what you feel, of bridging the gap between nostalgia and the present, and of affirming a bond even in the face of external upheaval. By weaving all these layers together, personal, upheaval, nostalgic intimacy, playful dares, and a climactic confession, Scene 1 of this imagined movie encapsulates many facets of queer experience and female bonding. It shows how lesbians can see their own pasts reflected in Karlee and Charlotte's tentative rediscovery of each other, how women more broadly can identify with the longing and emotional care depicted, and how society's discomfort with two girls in love is rooted in outdated, patriarchal assumptions that these kinds of stories directly challenge. In doing so, it helps normalize a vision of young women's intimacy that is as legitimate, complex, and emotionally resonant as any straight counterpart, giving audiences a new lens through which to view love, friendship, and self-discovery.